Well, hello. I thought that the next video I made on history, etc., would be the answers to this month's Q&A, and I'm still going to do that tomorrow, probably. But something very exciting has dropped in, and I wanted to talk about that first because there's been a YouGov poll examining what Americans specifically think about the Middle Ages, and the statistics are absolutely electric. So I thought I would sum up a few little reactions to these statistics. I've linked in the article on history, etc., the one that you can read below this video. I've linked to some of I've linked to the survey itself, but I've also summed up some of the data. I would recommend reading the survey. You can read my reactions to it. But here are some of the headlines. I think the biggest thing for me, and you're going to have to think back to 2023 now, there was a big, I'm told it was a TikTok trend. I'm not a TikTok cat myself, but it broke into the inner sanctum of my awareness. There was a TikTok trend in 2023 about how often men thought about the Roman Empire. Blah, blah, blah. They think about the Roman Empire all the time. Yeah, well, let's have a look at this little survey, shall we? Because, according to YouGov, the pollsters, men are thinking about the Middle Ages more than the Roman Empire. Only slightly more, but more is definitely more. So here are the stats. US adult citizens, how often do you think about the European Middle Ages? 11% weekly or more, 12% once a month. That's for the Middle Ages. What about what's the Roman Empire bringing? 9% weekly or more, 9% once a month. So that's a clear victory for the Middle Ages. 23% of Americans think about the Middle Ages with the frequency of a full moon, for example, whereas only 18% are thinking about the glories of the superpower of classical antiquity. Well, that's one in the eye for the Roman Empire. I think probably needless to say, thinking about the Middle Ages skews more male than it does female. 29% of American men think about the Middle Ages at least once a month. Only 19% of women. But those, well, what can we say about those figures? Those figures definitely show room for improvement. I don't love the fact. I don't love the fact that more than half more than half of American men claim to only think about the Middle Ages once a year, if that. But we'll convert you in the end. Other highlights. What can I tell you? Joan of Arc gets mad ratings, by which I mean people are asked for their opinion on prominent figures from the Middle Ages, and Joan of Arc comes in 67% very or somewhat favourable. Marco Polo 57%, Richard the Lionheart 46%, Charlemagne 36%, William the Conqueror 33%. Quite a lot of hate for William the Conqueror as well, 23% negative rating for him there, although still net positive. Old Saladin propping up the table, 18% positive ratings for Saladin, 16% negative, and to be fair to him, 67% of people never heard of the guy, which is a shame. Mind you, Joan of Arc's net approval rating, 67% favourable, -8 unfavourable. That's strong. If you had an American president, for example, who had a net approval rating of 61%, I don't like to make comparisons, but the current American president has a net approval rating of, I think, -3%. I'm just saying. I'm not necessarily suggesting you'll make a peasant girl from Domremy the 48th president, but you could do worse. Castles, meanwhile, I like this a lot. Castles, well, let's back up a minute. Americans are likely to have a favourable view of castles and chivalry is the headline here. The question is, do you have a favourable or unfavourable opinion of the following things? And we get castles coming in very favourable at 75%. So castles are even more popular than Joan of Arc. in fact, net approval rating 68%. Again, a Castle would make a a very good American president on the basis of that data. Chivalry, people dig chivalry, 63% favourable. 61% of people think Gothic architecture is fantastic, although 12% of people abhor it. And so on. Vikings, 51% favourable, 27% unfavourable. I can see how the Vikings would split opinion. 36% of people have a very favourable opinion of Gregorian chant. Why not? Then we get to the Crusade. Now, the Crusades is interesting because 32% of people overall have a favourable opinion of the Crusades, 41% unfavourable, but that also breaks down very markedly politically. Liberals, 61% of people, the Crusades are a huge no-no, whereas among conservatives, 45% of people have an absolute boner for the Crusades. Frankly, does that surprise you? It doesn't surprise me very much. And if you want to understand a bit more about that, go and watch my recent appearance on trigonometry, and then read the comments. Last thing, I think, because I want you to read the article that's underneath this little video. The Black Plague, I think that means the Black Death. We know what we're talking about, the global pandemic between 1348 and, almost interminable at the other end. 1348, it kind of really swept through Western Europe, having got going the year before. The Black Plague, we know what we're talking about. The Black Death, do you have a favourable or unfavourable opinion of the Black Death? Well, 74% of people aren't mental. They say no, it's a huge no to the Black Death. 17% of people not that interested. I wonder if they were even listening. 9% of Americans have a positive view of the Black Death. And I just wonder, is this a sign of the times, as Prince would have said? Or is this an example of what's known as Lizardman's constant? Easy for me to say. Lizardman's constant. You see this sort of thing in all sorts of surveys where people are either trying to mess with the surveyor, don't know what they're talking about, or just click the wrong button. Well, who knows? Anyway, very interesting survey. If you want to delve statistically into the Middle Ages, I highly recommend reading it. If you want the upsum, it's in the article down there. Enjoy. I'll be back with the Q&A probably tomorrow. Probably.